I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my marriage fell apart over a woman I trusted completely. Her name was Lisa. We met in college, got married right out of school, and for a while everything seemed perfect. She was funny, smart, ambitious, a real catch. We moved into a decent house, started our careers, and I genuinely believed we were building a life together. But in the last year, something changed, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It started with little things. She'd be late coming home from work more often, claiming she had extra meetings or business dinners. Her phone started ringing at odd hours and she'd quickly hide it when I entered the room. I brushed it off. Maybe she was just busy, maybe I was overthinking. But then I noticed her suddenly being more dismissive, snapping at me when I asked questions about her day. She became bitchy, snapping at me for no reason, and saying I was paranoid or insecure every time I brought it up. Still, I kept believing in us. I told myself maybe she was stressed, maybe I was just imagining things. Then came the night I found her phone in the laundry room. She'd left it there accidentally. I saw a notification pop up on the screen from some number I didn't recognize. It was a message from someone called Jake. The message was flirty, a little too familiar. My stomach sank. I felt this cold wave rush over me, and suddenly all those little signs made sense. Her defensiveness, her secretive behavior, the late nights. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I waited. The next day I decided to check her messages more carefully just to see what was really going on. That's when I saw the full conversation. It was explicit. She was telling him how she loved the way he touched her, how she missed him, and how she wanted to see him again. I felt like my world imploded. She was cheating on me. With Jake, the guy from our high school, the one who used to bully me. I never liked him, never trusted him, and now I found out she was meeting him behind my back. The worst part, they'd been meeting after I'd thought we all had some kind of peace, after the reunion even. I remember her telling me she'd moved on from high school drama. Turns out she'd been secretly reconnecting with him and worse, screwing him. That realization hit harder than anything else. I mean, I'd always known Lisa could be a bitch, but I didn't think she'd betray me with someone I despised. The shock, the anger, it made my head spin. But what scared me even more was how calm I'd been after I saw it. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know how to handle what I'd uncovered. So I decided I couldn't just sit on this anymore. I had to face her, confront her directly. I waited until she came home from work that evening, heart pounding in my chest. I remember standing there in the living room, her coat still hanging off one shoulder, acting like everything was fine. I looked straight at her and just said, "Lisa, I saw the messages. Who is Jake?" Her face froze for a second, then she blinked and gave me that fake, bitchy smile she always reserved for when she knew she was caught. "What are you talking about? You're crazy. That's just some old friend. From high school, we're not doing anything." I didn't buy it, not even close. I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages. Her eyes widened for a split second, then she quickly regained her composure, scoffing. "Oh, it's nothing. You're reading into it too much, just some stupid flirt. It doesn't mean anything." It was the classic line she'd been throwing around, lies, lies, and more lies. I felt a rage boiling inside me, but I kept my voice steady. "Lisa, I saw the way you talk to him. The way you flirt. You're meeting him behind my back. How long has this been going on?" She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "It's not what you think. We're just talking. It's harmless. I mean, it's just sex talk, whatever. It doesn't mean I want to leave you or cheat on you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was trying to downplay it, brush it off like it was nothing, like she was entitled to do whatever she wanted. I felt a mix of rage and hurt. How could she be so callous? How could she lie to my face and tell me? It was nothing. I'd never been so furious in my life. I told her I needed time to think, that I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay anymore. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything I'd uncovered. I kept thinking about how she'd lied to me, how she'd continued meeting him after all our talks about honesty and respect. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, like my entire world was crumbling and I had no idea what was real anymore. It was just the beginning. I knew I had to come up with a plan. I couldn't just let her get away with this, not after everything we built. Over the next few days, I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I looked at Lisa, I saw a stranger, someone selfish, manipulative, and utterly ruthless. I wasn't naive enough to think I could just ignore it and move on. No, I needed a plan. I decided I'd gather more evidence, see if she slipped up again, and figure out exactly how deep this went. I couldn't trust her anymore. Not after lying so blatantly. One morning I decided to check her phone again just to see if she'd been careless. I waited until she headed out to work, then I snuck into her purse. Her texts with Jake were still there, but what caught my eye was a picture she sent him that day. It was her in a tight dress, smiling at the camera with a caption that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight." I felt like I'd been hit again. The audacity. She was deliberately planning to meet him, even after I'd confronted her. I couldn't believe she was so brazen. I wanted to explode, but I kept my cool. Instead, I decided to head to her workplace to see if I could find out more. I didn't want to be the guy who stalks his wife, but I was desperate for any clue that could help me understand her mindset. I waited outside her office building, trying to look casual, heart hammering in my chest. When she finally stepped out at lunch, I approached her. "Lisa," I said, trying to sound calm but furious underneath, "I need to talk about everything." She looked surprised, then annoyed, and rolled her eyes. "What now? Can't you just leave me alone?" "No," I said firmly. "I know what you're doing. I know about Jake. I know you're still meeting him after I told you I saw everything. So tell me, are you cheating on me?" Her face twisted into something bitter. She scoffed. "I'm not cheating. You're crazy. You're just insecure. I have a life too, you know. I don't need to explain myself to you every step of the way." That was when I saw her lie, the way she refused to admit what was obvious. I had enough. I told her I'd had enough of her bullshit and I was done pretending everything was okay. I told her that I was going to find out the truth, no matter what it took. Then I left her standing there, furious and dismissive, as I drove home with a pounding head and a sinking feeling in my chest. By the time I got back, I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't keep living like this, doubting everything, feeling like I was losing my mind. I decided that I'd set a trap some way to catch her red-handed, or at least to prove to myself once and for all what she was really doing. I didn't want to just accuse her blindly anymore. I wanted proof. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. This was going to be her wake-up call, one way or another. I just didn't know what I'd do if it turned out I was right. The plan I came up with wasn't complicated, but it was cold. I set my phone on record and told her I was going out to grab some groceries. But really, I stayed in the house, hidden in the other room, waiting for her to do something stupid. I knew she'd try to meet him again, or at least talk to him. That's when I'd catch her, or at least get definitive proof. It was the third night after I'd decided to play this game that I heard her get a text. It was late, around 11 p.m., and I was pretending to be asleep on the couch. I heard her whispering on the phone, and she sounded different, not her usual bitchy tone, but nervous, maybe even scared. I managed to turn my phone slightly so I could record her. "Yeah, I'll see you tonight. Just make sure nobody's around," she whispered. "I don't want anyone to know." My stomach clenched. That was it, proof. She was telling him she'd meet him again, and she was worried about being seen. I couldn't believe how brazen she was being, saying that stuff right in front of me like I was too stupid to notice. I felt a surge of anger I'd never experienced before. How dare she lie to my face, then go behind my back? How dare she think she could keep doing this, thinking she'd get away with it? The next morning, I played back the recording. Her voice was clear, her words unmistakable. I knew then that I had enough evidence. I hadn't expected to feel so numb, but I did. It was like I'd been punched again, only this time harder. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time, I wasn't going to hold back. I sat her down that evening with all the evidence on my phone. I told her I knew about her meetings, her texts, everything. Her face twisted into that same bitchy smirk, but I wasn't impressed anymore. I told her she could lie all she wanted, but I wasn't stupid. I knew she'd been screwing Jake behind my back. Her reaction was classic. She tried to deny everything, saying I was just paranoid, that I was jealous, that she was only talking to him. But I cut her off. I told her I wasn't going to listen to her lies anymore. I told her I was done, that I deserved better than a cheating, manipulative wife who thought she could get away with it. And that was when she snapped. Her face turned red and she yelled, "You're overreacting as usual, you're pathetic." That was it. The moment I realized I'd been pushed too far, that I had to do something more than just talk. I felt a strange calm come over me, like I'd finally accepted what had to be done. I knew I couldn't keep living in this toxic mess. Her betrayal had shattered whatever hope I had for us, and I had to figure out how to handle the aftermath. The plan was forming in my mind, and I knew it was going to change everything. The days that followed were a blur of planning and raw, overwhelming emotion. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I kept replaying everything she said, every lie, every sneer. I felt like I'd been sucker punched in the gut 100 times over. I knew I needed to do something definitive, something that would make her realize I was done being played. I didn't want to just leave her, I wanted her to feel the sting of knowing she'd lost everything. So I devised a plan. It was sneaky but calculated. I'd invite her out for dinner, act like I was trying to reconcile, and then catch her in the act. Again, only this time I'd have proof ready. I decided to set up a hidden camera in the bedroom, pointing directly at the bed. If she was meeting him, I wanted it on record. I also arranged for someone I trusted to be nearby, ready to intervene if things got out of hand. The night came and I played the perfect husband. I suggested we go out, pretending everything was fine. She was her usual bitchy, self-dismissive and sarcastic, but I kept my cool. I could feel her eyeing me, sizing me up, trying to see if I was onto her. Inside, I was a mess, angry, hurt, but also oddly relieved that I was finally taking control. We arrived at the restaurant and she was snippy with the server, snapping at the smallest things. I knew that deep down she was nervous. She knew I was onto her. After dinner, I suggested we go back home, saying I had a surprise for her. She rolled her eyes but followed along. Once we got back, I made a show of heading to the bathroom. That's when I activated the hidden camera in our bedroom. I knew she'd try to meet him again, or at least talk to him. I wanted definitive proof. My heart was pounding as I waited, clutching my phone, trying not to lose my nerve. Then the door opened slowly. She was sneaking out. I saw her grab her purse, tiptoe past the door, and slip out into the night. I followed her at a distance, heart racing. She went straight to a nearby hotel, checked in, and within minutes her phone buzzed with a message from Jake. I could see her beaming, texting him like she was in some secret teenage affair. That was it, proof enough. I wasn't imagining things. I stayed in the car outside the hotel for a few minutes, unsure whether to confront her in person or just record everything. I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I had what I needed. My mind was made up. I was going to end this, one way or another. The betrayal was so deep that I realized I'd never trust her again. I'd been naive, thinking we had a future. All I felt now was the cold realization that I had to take control and get out. The question was, how much damage had been done and could I ever come back from it? That night, after I'd recorded her sneaking out and saw her texting Jake from the hotel, everything inside me shifted. I felt hollow, exhausted, like I'd been drained of all hope. I knew I couldn't stay under the same roof anymore. My gut told me I had to confront her one last time, but this time, it would be final. I wasn't interested in her excuses or her lies. I just wanted her gone. I waited until she came back home, her face smug and dismissive, like she thought she'd gotten away with everything. I was cold. I told her I knew everything, the texts, her sneaking out the hotel. I told her she'd crossed a line I could never forgive. Her eyes narrowed and she spat out some bullshit about how I was crazy, paranoid, and possessive. But I had the evidence on my phone, proof of her betrayal, her manipulation, her lying, all of it. I told her I was done, that I didn't want to see her face again. I explained that I'd been betrayed by someone I loved, someone I trusted, and that she'd broken me. I was tired of her lies, her bitchy attitude, her constant disrespect. I said I'd file for divorce and she could take her bullshit elsewhere. She snapped, furious, accusing me of being insecure, jealous, and controlling. But I wasn't listening anymore. All I could think about was how much I'd lost and how much I'd been hurt. I'd spent years building this life, and she was throwing it all away for some guy from high school who used to torment me. It was a sick, twisted joke, one I refused to be part of anymore. As she yelled and cursed, I packed my things. I didn't want to drag this out, didn't want any more of her venom. I wanted out of this nightmare, out of the betrayal, and out of her life. I left her standing there, screaming, knowing I was free at last. It was like a weight had been lifted, painful but necessary. Since then, I've been trying to rebuild. It's not easy, but I've learned a lot from this mess. Mainly that trust isn't something you can take for granted, that people can surprise you in the worst ways, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away, alive and free, refusing to let someone else's betrayal define your life. I don't regret what I did. If anything, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but at least now I know the truth. To anyone dealing with similar betrayal, trust your gut. Don't be afraid to dig deeper, even if it hurts. And remember, you're better off without someone who lies, manipulates, and cheats on you. Because in the end, true strength lies in knowing your worth and walking away when someone proves they don't deserve it.